Hey there, so you're probably a high ticket closer who has only just started, or you've been feeling stuck for a while now, maybe a few months. You feel as though the script, the framework that you're using isn't delivering you the results you're after. You're running into objections at the back end of your call or resistance towards the front end during your discovery. I just really wanted to simplify things for you and break down the few essential steps that you need to follow in order to secure a sale. And you really don't need to overcomplicate this. I feel as though that's where a lot of sales reps go wrong. They try and finesse things with too many analogies, too many little clever word tracks and metaphors and things like that, when really they need to nail the basics first, and then you can add the filler and the fluff and the advanced techniques on top to really up your close rate to breaking through that $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month mark. So to start with, you want to open up the call and figure out what is the outcome. So I know you might not even be able to see this whiteboard, it's quite small, but I thought, hey, I like writing on the board. So what is the outcome that the prospect is looking to achieve? Now, to keep things simple for you, let's just use a business opportunity example. So let's say e-commerce, for example. So what is the outcome that you are looking to achieve from starting an e-commerce business? Now, from here, a prospect is always going to go two ways. It's either money or freedom. Because when you're starting a business, they're the only two things that a business really provides. Now, the issue here is that in order for you to attain more freedom, you need to usually make more money. So really, you want to funnel the prospect down to the money answer regardless. So when you open up this conversation, a really good way of doing so is, what is the specific reason behind wanting to make more money through starting an e-commerce business? What you're now doing is you're presuming, but really you're saving time because that is the goal as to why they want a business. You're presuming they want to make more money regardless. So what is the reason behind that specifically? From there, they will then usually give you the freedom answer, or an answer maybe a little bit more detailed or in depth. Let's say they want to make more money specifically to help their family member. You're going to get a tangible goal that's not completely surface level. If somebody just says, I just want to make more money, well, everybody wants to make more money, right? You need to make it more emotional, more specific to the individual, and this is how you will do so. Now, from here, we understand what they're looking to achieve from working with ourselves. The next step is to draw a comparison and a contrast to their current situation by gathering context. I'm just going to write context there. Now, the way in which we gather context is, well, what is it that you're doing currently for work? Let's say, okay, and how many hours a week are you having to work there? How much money are you pulling in per month from there? Is that enough? Do you feel like you're being paid your worth? Do you like your occupation? Let's say they say, I love it. Well, what's the reason behind wanting to start a new business rather than just sticking with your current occupation, doubling down effort on that and getting the result from there? Well, I can't make the money I need to make via that vehicle, therefore I need something new. Let's say they hate their job. Dig deeper on that. What about the job specifically do you dislike? In how long would you feel you felt that way about your occupation? In what way has that actually shown up in your life, outside of work even? These contextual questions are going to begin to paint the picture for you as to why they do not currently enjoy their current circumstance. And if anything, it's now going to build you leverage as to why reaching this goal is important. And we need that for the following question, which is, How long has this been their goal? This is critical. We've figured out what their goal is. We've drawn contrast to their current circumstance. We now want to know how long have they wanted to do something like this. And for the most part, it is usually an extended length of time. Now, we never want to assume, we want to hear it from them. But once we've gotten a very clear timeline, the next step, what has held them back from achieving this? What? I basically filled the board. What has held them back? This right here is the baby. What has held them back over X amount of time from achieving important goal of theirs? Because this right here is the objection. And the earlier you can get to this in the call, the better, because then we can pre-handle the objection to make sure that it doesn't come up at the end, and then we can close the deal. And we're not stood there having to sift through our folder of objection word tracks and metaphors to try and get them out of their own way once the pressure of price is already on the table. We want to deal with this earlier when the pressure is reduced. Now, from here, they're going to go one of two ways. Let me rub some of this off at the top. So they're going to go either, move over here, internal, which is great, or external, which is not great. So when you ask them what has held you back up to this point, given how important this goal is for you over the last 4 years from achieving so, they could say an external reason. They could say, well, I didn't have the time. I didn't have the money. I couldn't find the right opportunity. Now, each of these reasons that they are giving you is an external factor. They are taking the onus of responsibility, accountability out of their hands, and they're saying it was this other reason. This is why I couldn't achieve it. Now, if they externalize their problems and they externalize the reason behind why they haven't achieved their goal, then they're actually disempowering themselves from having the power to change it. Because if it isn't their responsibility, why they're currently in this situation, then they won't be able to take the responsibility necessary to change, to repair it. So we now need to reframe their way of thinking, help them overcome their limitation, and allow them to take accountability. So if they say an external reason here, time, money, couldn't find the right opportunity, well, time in and of itself isn't a binary factor. It's down to what we prioritize in our own life. Would that be fair to say? And I'm sure you would agree here. We prioritize where we spend our time. And would you say that there is somebody out there in the world who may have also been working a 9-to-5, long hours, had a family, but still found a way to prioritize their time and start a business? Of course there is. So given that fact, it can't be the sole reason behind why we haven't achieved our goals. So coming from an extreme ownership perspective now, what do you feel really was the internal reason holding you back from prioritizing the time to make this happen? That's how we bring them around to the internal, where we need them to be for their best interest. Now, likewise with money, it's the same reframe. I'll likely do a separate video on the individual reframes, otherwise this will take a very long time because there are a number of external factors. So one of my next videos, I will cover how to reframe each external factor independently so you can see that in more depth. However, just to keep this simple for you, once we've reframed them and got them to the internal limitation, which 99% of the time is fear. That's what it is. It is fear. Because It's the fear of failure. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing money, of wasting time, of disappointing their family, of putting themselves into a worse situation and position than they are now. That's all it really is. And they can say a number of different things, but it will always boil back to there. For example, if it's a lack of accountability or responsibility, usually that is due to the fact of they are scared to take full accountability, because then the stakes are higher. The onus is on them, and that is scary for a lot of people. So we get them to this point now where we understand what they're looking to achieve. We've compared it to their current circumstance, and we know that they are not fully satisfied with the life they currently live. We've figured out how long that has been a goal for them to achieve. We've figured out what has held them back from achieving it. We've now reframed their way of thinking if they've externalized the reason. We've gotten them to take accountability. We've gotten them to realize that this is now going to empower them to overcome that fear, take a big bold step, and become this new and improved version of themselves that is capable of running a business. So from here, we now build the vision. Let me rub more of this off. We build the vision of this future version. Let me move back over here. Build vision. So it's not how are you going to feel, how is your life going to change once you've joined our marketing agency and you've made X amount of money and you've bought the Lamborghini. How's that going to feel? No, surface level. It's how will your life now change? How will you feel now you have become the version of yourself who doesn't allow fear to hold them back? The version of yourself who takes a big, bold step, who takes responsibility for their own life and begins the journey to achieve everything you've wanted to achieve for X amount of time. That's the vision of this new and improved identity that they have, because that is the core layer of a sale. Well, once I've overcome fear and I've invested into myself to get the necessary skills needed to start a business, which will then make me the money I'm after for my family, this is how life will be different. And they'll go into detail. They'll be living this life with their family. Maybe they'll have a nicer house, they'll have a nicer home. And then how is that going to make you feel knowing that it's down to yourself overcoming this? You've stopped this holding you back any longer. That's going to feel great. That's going to feel way better than driving a Lamborghini, overcoming a limitation that's held them back for 5 years, maybe even since childhood, more than likely. That is a huge win, way more than a monetary or materialistic value. So that's how we build the vision, build it around their new identity. Now, we build the cost of not changing their way of thinking. Build cost. So people will call this consequence or cost of inaction, building the cost. So we've now built their vision. This is the version of themselves who's overcome fear, who's taken a big bold step, invested and got the skills. Now we say, look, I really appreciate you sharing everything with me, and I really do want to see you succeed. I want to see you become this version of yourself who can make this happen for their family, who can overcome fear, who can take a big bold step. However, on the other side of the coin is we don't make any changes, right? We don't overcome fear, and that is always an option that you can choose to make. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. However, this is going to light the fire under us necessary to make sure we don't fall back into these habits. So what will life look like in 3-5 years' time if we don't overcome fear? What will that life look like? We now get them to paint the picture of their life where they don't change. And this is going to be bad, more than likely, because we already know they don't enjoy their current circumstance. We already know they've allowed a limitation to hold them back, which cannot feel good inside. Now they're fully aware. So what will life look like if you continue living day to day knowing you're not putting your best foot forward, knowing you've not empowered yourself to break out of that cycle? And then we build that future life where usually it will have a big emotional toll. They won't be able to be as present for their family. What impact will that have? Not only on yourself, of course, but those around you. Paint this vision, paint the pain is what we want to build, because pain is going to be a driver to help them to change. Now, we've gotten to this step here. So we've found the outcome. Let's break it down. We've found the outcome. We've drawn a contrast to their current circumstance. We found out how long that's been a goal of theirs. We've figured out what's held them back. We've helped reframe their way of thinking to take full accountability and then overcome the limiting belief that has held them back. We've built the vision of them becoming this new version of themselves, stepping into this new identity. And then we've built the cost of not becoming this new version of themselves and just staying the version they are now, staying in the day-to-day life that they currently live in. This has now all culminated into an empowering way to pre-handle objections, because they have fortified now this construct in their mind that they need to change. They can't continue making decisions the way they have up to now, because that would be currently where they are. And if they decide to go back on their word, then you can very easily use this entire portion of the call as leverage on the back end. So objection handling isn't a fight any longer. It's just taking their hand, guiding them back down the path that they've just walked on, and saying, look, you've said all of this, you've highlighted all of this to yourself. Do you really want that, the cost of not changing, to be the future? Is that the future that you're willing to settle for yourself and your family? Because fear is a powerful enemy. You want to allow that to win. That's the leverage that we now have getting to the end of the call. Now from there, of course, you pitch them and then you get to the close. And if need be, of course, you can objection handle them. Once again, I will make another video entirely separately on objections. However, pre-handling objections is the most powerful thing you can do in a conversation, because you build leverage not only for yourself, but it's like you're climbing a mountain with the prospect, and we're trying to get as many carabiners in the rock as we can, so that if the prospect falls at the end of the call after you drop the price, and then their confidence drops and the fear increases and the rope snaps and they think, oh wow, I don't want to pay 5,000. We want as many carabiners as possible to be able to not fall as far, so then we can catch them on the safety. And then it makes it much easier for us to pull them back up, empower them, make the best decision for themselves, and move forward with your program. If you haven't built this leverage earlier on in the call, price gets dropped, they plummet down the mountain, and then you're sat there trying to pull this dead weight right the way back up. That is not what we want to be doing. So keep it simple, keep it concise, follow the steps that I've covered. If you would like a more in-depth framework where I actually break this down line by line, then you can apply to work with me one-to-one. I currently run my own sales community, Congruent Closers, where we work on not only internal mastery of ourselves so that we can take full responsibility for our own lives and therefore help others too as well, but of course, develop the key framework necessary to close as many deals as possible, how to handle objections if they do come up at the end, and of course, how to close $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in commissions per month. So if you have enjoyed this, drop a like, I would appreciate it. Any questions, drop them down in the comments below. And I'll also attach my Instagram in the description and the link to apply to work with me. So if you've got any further questions for me, shoot me a message on Instagram or tap that link, book in a call directly. Me and yourself can hop on and have a conversation about things and see whether I can help you. Now, that's it. I'll catch you later.